AP Computer Science A, Unit 5. This is a preview and note sheets for P5F. Okay, so P5F. Now, let's take a quick look at P5F. They're saying, okay, well, my device superclass accommodates devices, but what if we want to sell a book? What if we want to put a book in our shopping cart? Now, we could try and pretend like a book is a device and just ignore the memory part of it, but that's not a good idea. So it's not good to just fake like a book is actually in my device. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use something called an interface. So interfaces are used to group things together by behavior. Superclasses group things together based off of things they share in common, like they are similar objects. They have similar private instance variables. They call that the state of the or the instance of the object. Now, interface is going to help us get around that and allow us to put things together that behave the same. So let's call it interface. So up here, you're going to add this to your note sheet. So interface, we're going to call it shippable. These are things that can be shipped. Okay, so it's based off of common behavior. Now the header looks like this. Instead of class, it's public interface. Shippable. And we're going to just show that they all have a common method, a common behavior ship item. Okay, this is just UML diagram. Now, what we're going to put in here, usually for interfaces, we just put the methods as abstract methods. So public, abstract. We've talked about this before. Abstract means that the implementation of the method isn't going to be here because it's probably going to be different for all of these. Public, abstract, void, ship item. And when you put an abstract, you don't put the curly braces or any code. You end it with the semicolon right afterwards, and you put the word abstract. Now, Java lets you do a lot of shortcuts. So if you were to just say void for the method title, I don't want you to do this yet, but this is just to help you be aware. And in the future, when you see this on multiple choice questions, if you were to just put this, that would actually be good enough because, so this would work. I don't want you to use the shortcut yet. Would work also, but let's not use right now. Now, the reason it works is that Java assumes that it's public and assumes that if it's in an interface, that it's abstract also. So by default, these are usually public and abstract because they got to be used by other classes and they got to be implemented by other classes. So this is sort of a little side note here. Now, on our UML diagrams, let's have the myDevice class implement. So if you do a dash line with a closed arrow, that means implements. Okay, so it's different than subclass, superclass. It implements. Instead of extends, it implements. So, we could add that little picture up here if you want. This is for an interface. Now, in I think in BlueJ it's going to be a dash line. So we want this guy to implement the shippable interface. And we also want our book down here, my book. So we're going to add a class. Now for P5F, you're going to start with, you're going to open up your P5D program and save it as P5F. Because most of the stuff, a lot of stuff is going to be the same. Like all this stuff is going to still be there. You're going to add this public class my book. Now, the keyword that you put in these, like on these ones, it says extends my device. On these ones, you say implements shippable. So the keyword is implements. Okay, so this implements that interface. Now we have to add it up here also. We have to add implements shippable. Now shippable, these aren't objects. You can't create just a shippable object. There's no constructors in it. There's no private instance variables in it. It's really just a list of methods that these different classes are going to have in common. So some extra notes over here that we could add just to kind of emphasize that. So an interface is not a class. Okay? It doesn't organize objects, it organizes behavior. All right? It's really just a list of abstract methods that the classes must implement themselves. Okay, so implement is a word that we've been using already. Implement means to write the code for to write the code for a method. And so if this implements shippable, that means it gets its methods, but it has to write the code for it. The code has to be in here. Okay. It contains no variables of any kind, private or public or whatever. You can't instantiate one of these. Instantiate is a fancy word for create one, construct one. You can't instantiate a shippable object. Okay, you can't say new shippable ever. And it's simply a list of these methods, and it's really just the method header followed by a semicolon. So you'll notice that we had right there, just followed by a semicolon. And that's always the case when you do an abstract method. You can have abstract methods in classes also, but an interface is just simply a list of abstract methods. So in your my book, we're going to put private instance variable. The negative means private. String title, string author, double price. It's going to have a price, but these guys, we didn't put price in them because they all get it from this guy. The my book doesn't get it from there, so it's just going to have it on its own, and it's going to need Boolean is in stock. So all the stuff we took out of the my phone, my computer, my robot, we have to put in this one because this one doesn't inherit it from the superclass. You're going to also need to put the ship item method in, make it public, plus. And you're going to need to do the toString. Okay. And those. Okay. And the ship item right here, since was abstract in the interface, since it was an abstract method in the interface, we have to implement the code for it. We have to implement the method here. We have to supply the code that makes it work. Okay? Now, this guy over here, ship item, was implemented right here. So that one's okay. So one other thing I want to mention, I don't think I mentioned earlier video, that I said that all classes in Java are subclasses of some other class. The highest level class is the object class, capital O, object. Everything belongs to the object class. That's sort of separate from this whole interface stuff, but I thought I'd mention it because I hadn't added it to the notes yet. Let me see if there's anything else I want to add. Now, when you go to create these in your driver for P5F, you can kind of use what's already there. You could just use what's there and just add a book onto the end of it. You know, just you already have, I think you have. Now we're going to do the whole speed of light thing. So you already have three. At least three devices that are greater than $200, equal to 200, less than 200. So you had 6 different cases. For the book one, you could do a few different cases for that one also. There's some stuff I need to tell you. I guess we could use just you could do it on the back of this sheet. So when you go to create the My Computer and all that stuff, like in your code, you already have this. You already have My Computer in the driver. You already have My Computer, computer 1 equals new computer, you know, and whatever it is, $499.99, 2, true, false, right? Because you need to have at least one that's over 200, less than 200, equal to 200 in stock, and then one that's over 200, equal to 200, less than 200 out of stock. But here's an interesting thing, and you don't have to do this, but this is an interesting thing. We can't create a shippable object. We can never say new shippable, but we could make the reference of the variable shippable. You can make the references of the variable shippable. So that's kind of an interesting thing. That, and you'll see this sometimes. One other issue that's going to happen, you know, you're going to go through, you know, you guys already have these for loops. We can't use for each loops for speed of light shipping because we have to take stuff out of an array list. So we have to use regular for loop. So int index index is less than shopping cart dot size. So this is one of your for loops, and you did this back in P5 USD. Now there's an interesting problem that's going to come up, okay? And so I want to help you understand what the problem is and how to solve it, okay? So what we probably had before was we said if you probably want to check if the object is in stock first, because who cares what its price is? if it's not in stock. So we could say int index now is in stock. Get is in stock. Now here's the problem. These are all our array list now holds shippable objects. You got to change that. You got to change the array list. Shopping cart, standard, and speed of light shipping all need to hold shippable. Okay, even though you can't actually make a shippable object, you can hold things. So, like before this, your array list, you need to change it to shippable, holding shippable objects, which you can't really make a shippable object, but objects that implement that interface. So this is something that you should have changed. So I'm giving you guys some help here. And you have most of this there, so you're really just editing what's inside of it. Right? Okay. So you do that, you add all your objects to the shopping cart that now holds shippable. Now, when you go through here and you get something out of shopping, even though they are different kinds of objects and polymorphism works and Java can pick the right method from the right thing, these are now all considered shippable. And so if you try to do get in stock or get price, it's going to look up here first and say, is get in stock or get price in here? And it doesn't see them in here. So it actually doesn't even recognize that they could exist in these other subclasses. It just says, nope, can't do it. That method doesn't exist. I can't find that method in the shippable class. Okay, so we have to do some clever things to get it to do the right thing. Okay, and so we have to use this thing called, what we're going to do is we're going to check, is it a my device or is it a book? Because if it's one or the other, we'll look at each one and then we have to downcast it. Right now, these objects, because they're in a shippable array list, are seen as shippable, classes. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this method that we haven't used before. This is also something that you need to be aware of for multiple choice questions. So we're not going to avoid it right now. So there's this method called instance of. And what it does is it allows you to test if an object is a my device. Instance of. All right? And everything's lowercase, by the way, on this one, which might seem a little confusing. Is this object an instance of a my device? Instance means like a specific version of it. So we check that first. We got to check that first. If you don't do this, this isn't going to work. And then you say, okay, well, if it is a my device, let's downcast it to a my device. So we've done casting before, right? We've done casting before. Changing doubles to ints or ints to doubles. Like that's casting, right? And usually it's in these parentheses. Okay, I don't think we've done it for a while. We can actually cast objects from one kind of object to another. So I'm going to get the object out now, the same one I just checked. If it is a device, I'll do this. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to cast this object. So we need an extra set of parentheses here. So in the if, I'm going to cast this object, and then I'm going to call get is in stock on it, and it'll do the right thing. Okay? So we have to, and you got to put parentheses around this, because otherwise what Java does is it's going to try to run get is in stock on the object, which it still doesn't recognize. But if we cast it first to a my device, then this will work correctly. But then we got to check the price, right? And we got to do the same thing. We have to cast it. Okay, if and then extra parentheses, and then these parentheses are around what you're going to cast it to, my device, and that's what we've always done before. These parentheses make sure that you do it before you run the method on it. So I know this is a little annoying, but this is good. This is good stuff. You're going to have to understand this stuff for multiple choice for sure. The casting from one kind of object to another. They call it downcasting because shippable is kind of higher up, and then my device is sort of below shippable, so they call it downcasting. So you downcast it, and then you could run the get price method. And this is where you test if it's greater than or equal to 200, right? So you do that, and then you do what you're supposed to do. You add it to the right array, take it out of the other array, okay? Remember, when you take things out of an array list, you have to back up the counter, otherwise you'll skip them. So you do that, right? And then you probably have an else if, and you're going to have to do the casting again. So I'm helping you guys out here. So we're gonna, it's a little annoying. There might be other ways to deal with this. So these are around that, and then you do dot get price, and you could say what? You could say less than 200, right? I guess we don't really. We could just do else, because that's the only other situation, right? We could skip this and just do else, right? I think that would work. Okay, now that's if it was a my device. So then the other situation, we have this if it's in stock, and if the price is this, else if the price is this, then we close that if, and then we close the if on whether it was in my device, and then now we have to say else if, and we got to check if it's a book. Okay, so we're going to do it's the same idea, but now you're going to say, all right, well, let's make sure if it's a book, we'll cast it to a book. You don't want to start casting things that you don't know what they are, right? So this is where we do the instance of, and we say a my book. Is this a my book? If it is, then we're going to go through the whole same process. You're pretty much going to have the same code, but you're going to cast it to my books, right? So you're going to say if parentheses. So we know it's a my book, so let's cast it to a my book. Shopping cart. So we have to make sure we cast it before we call the method on it. Get is in stock. So it's the same idea, right? And if it is, then you're going to check the price, and you're going to have to do this casting again. Okay. Now, so that is a little bit of an issue that comes up when we're using the interface. One way to solve it is we could say, well, in the shippable interface, they do share these methods, don't they? I thought I wrote it on here. Get. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay, so they do share get price. Well, this guy's going to need a get price, so you are going to need to also give it double get price. Oh wait, that would be down here. So you are going to need to give it double get price and Boolean. I think that should be Boolean. Boolean get is in stock. So one idea that we could do, we could deal with that problem a little easier. I'm sure you'll want to do it this way. Try the other way just to see, because it involved the casting and all that stuff. Now there is one way we could avoid that. We could put public abstract double get price, public abstract boolean get is in stock as methods up here. So then when we go to check if a shippable item is in stock and it finds the method here, it would then find the correct version of it down here. And then you wouldn't have to do any of the instance of, you wouldn't have to do any of the casting, and it would work really nice. But this was a good opportunity to talk about using instance of and downcasting objects, because that will show up in multiple choice questions. Okay. Now down here on collections, I might as well finish this sheet. This is collections are like arrays and array lists. So we could have a my device. This is just some examples. We call it devices. We've already been using this. New my device, array. We can do that. Now, something that we're going to get to soon, I'll just go and put it here, is we're going to start to deal with two-dimensional arrays. So we could make a two-dimensional array of phones, iPhones. And so this is a little preview of what we're going to be getting into next unit. We can create a two-dimensional array. I'm not going to get into it right now, but it has dimensions in two directions. We create an array list, shippable. Anyways, just some examples of how this all fits in with these structures, these collections. So I think that's it for our note sheet. I think we got everything on our note sheet, which might be helpful in your next test. This helps you with P5F. So go ahead and try it out.